left, left, right, left, right.
तू जिंदा है तू जिंदगी की जीत में यकीन कर, अगर कहीं है स्वर्ग तो उतार ला जमीन पर। तू जिंदा है तू जिंदगी की जीत में यकीन कर, अगर कहीं है स्वर्ग तो उतार ला जमीन पर। तू जिंदा है। तू जिंदगी की जीत में यकीन कर, अगर कहीं है स्वर्ग तो उतार ला जमीन पर। तू जिंदा है। ये गम के और 4 दिन, सितम के और 4 दिन, ये दिन भी जाएंगे गुजर गुजर गए 1000 दिन। ये गम के और 4 दिन, सितम के और 4 दिन, ये दिन भी जाएंगे गुजर गुजर गए 1000 दिन।
कभी तो होगी इस चमन पे भी बहार की नजर,
अगर कहीं है स्वर्ग तो उतार ला जमीन पर। तू जिंदा है तू जिंदगी की जीत में यकीन कर, अगर कहीं है स्वर्ग।
हम कैसे समाज में रहते हैं जहाँ पर इंसान को अपना ही जीवन जीने की आज़ादी नहीं है?
Women being raped and children being killed, and how insensitive our society has become.
People are not wrong. What is wrong is their religion. What is wrong is their social ideology.
Now the point is, do we want to sustain institutions in which equality and liberty cannot be sustained?
एक समय था जब गरीबी से लड़ने की जरूरत थी, अब वो समय आया है जब सांप्रदायिकता से लड़ने की जरूरत है।
Struggle against communalism can be properly waged by young people like you if you constantly interact with people who are around you.
People are having so much of myths regarding Muslim community.
हमारे खेलों तक पे असर देखने को मिलता है।
अपने निजी स्वार्थों के लिए, निजी लाभ के लिए वो पूरे शहर का, पूरे समाज का माहौल बिल्कुल खराब कर देता है।
I refuse to believe that a majority of our media is spreading hate or prejudice.
आपस में इस तरह की चीजें चलती रहे, समाज बटा रहे और उनको रोटियां सेकने का जो मौका मिलता रहे।
Generally, the people who perpetuate these crimes, they get away without getting any punishment.
Suppose such a carnage breaks out around you, what are you going to do?
Don't forget Afghanistan, don't forget Taliban, don't forget that these are the consequences of great internal strife produced by the same factors at work in our part of the world. Don't forget that.
Fascism in India will not come in the form in which it has come in Europe. Fascism in India will come in the form of communalism.
Even if not in the short run, I'm quite optimistic in the long run it will be defeated. It has to be defeated because it cannot survive. Because history has not been shaped like this. And history will come to the rescue of the future of a great nation like India.
I'll begin by trying to locate this whole question of identity in terms of several identities that all of us have. The common Delhi wala refers to people in South India as Madrasis. Now, this is one proof of the ignorance of the common Delhi wala. It also reflects a certain kind of imperialist, shall we say, mindset. Whereas the 4 states of South India, Kerala, Andhra, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, they all become Madras. The same is true of large part of the Northeast. The Northeast has 7 states. But in the minds of most North Indian, it is still Assam. Which brings us to the question of what is Hindustan, the India that we talk about. When a Bengali meets anybody from my part of the country, the question they ask you, Amit Bangla, aapne ki Hindustani? I am a Bengali. Are you an Indian? Are you a Hindustani? In Punjab, the standard expression for this is a literal translation. Asi te Punjabi hain, tusi ki Hindustani ho? I am a Punjabi. Are you a Hindustani? So what is Hindustan in the general understanding of the common people? Hindustan is within this subcontinent, but it is not where they live. Where they live is Punjab, where they live is Nagaland, where they live is Imphal, Manipur, etc., etc. Now, over the last 40, 50 years, and more specifically in the last 15, 20 years, a so-called Indian identity is sought to be created. An Indian identity which is a mythical construct, and that is presented to us as the mainstream. Everybody else is being asked to join mainstream. We want the Kashmiris to join the mainstream. We want the Northeast to join the mainstream. We want South India to join the mainstream. We want the Punjabis to join the mainstream. Now, if all these fellows are outside the mainstream, where is the mainstream? There cannot be a mainstream which has nobody in it. It will only be a shallow monsoonal nala. It can't be a mainstream. Cultures, civilizations grow and develop because they constantly take from each other. Civilizations borrow from others and give to others. And it is in this process of give and take that each civilization, each country, each nation constantly reinvents itself. It defines and redefines itself. Now, if you look at the specific question of India, I will take 2 or 3 very common examples through which to illustrate how elusive this category of identity is. Till today, 90% of India's population dresses itself in unstitched clothes. Sari, dhoti, langoti, gamcha, mundu, all unstitched. In fact, no stitched cloth in this country is of Indian origin. This is in spite of the fact that one of the earliest civilizations in the world who learned how to cultivate cotton is India. 5,000 years ago, in Mohenjo-daro, in excavation they have found a terracotta which has the figure of a man who is dressed in some kind of a stole, and there are patterns on it. And archaeologists have reached the conclusion that it was some kind of a printed or woven cotton fabric in Mehrangarh and in Mohenjo-daro. They have found seeds of cotton, they have found cotton fiber. Not only that they are now stitched and cut, woven and cut, but earlier you couldn't even cut cloth, because if you cut cloth, it became impure. If iron touched a length of cloth that you had woven, it became impure, unwhole. You had to wear clothes that were whole, taken off the loom and wrapped. Till today, no major religious ritual, especially of the Hindus and also of the Jainis and of the Buddhists, can be performed in stitched clothes. You look at the names of the clothes that we wear: shirt, bush shirt, t-shirt, English; trousers, pants, jeans, English. In no Indian language is there a word for these clothes in any other. You don't call shirt something else somewhere else. A shirt is a shirt, a bush shirt is a bush shirt, a pant is a pant, trousers are trousers. Blouses, which women wear, no Indian language has a word for the blouse, or for the petticoat, or for the chemise. Chemise, the origin of the word is French. The cloth is also French. It came to us with the French. So did most of the clothes that we wear today, except for the kurta and pajama. The kurta and pajama came to us from Central Asia. The Pathans or the Iranians or the Turks or any of these people brought it. India did not evolve the process of stitching. It did not originate in India. It came from outside. As did the art of grinding wheat or rice. Till Alexander invaded India, there were no rotis cooked in India because we did not have the grinding stone. The grinding stone came to India with Alexander. We also did not know how to cut cloth. The scissors were brought to India by the Roman armies. If you follow marriage rituals in large parts of the country, you will see that when the groom and the bride go around the fire, or some places they don't go around the fire, there are other rituals, but when the marriage is solemnized, The relatives stand around and they shower the couple with rice. But it's not rice, it is actually unhusked rice. It has to be whole rice, akshit, unbroken rice. Even among communities who don't eat rice as part of their diet, which is large part of Punjab, West UP, Haryana, they don't eat rice as a regular diet. They are roti eaters. In marriage rituals, they use rice, which makes us come to the conclusion that probably cultivation of rice began much before cultivation of wheat began. When you talk of invasions, there have been many invasions. Invasion presupposes borders. If people forcefully cross your borders, then that is an invasion. Like what the Pakistani army did in 1948. That was an invasion of already decided borders. But can one really say that Khilji was an invader? Because you are presupposing, you are projecting the India of today into 700 years or 1000 years before. 1000 years before, there were no borders. When there are no borders, there are no countries as we know them today. The concept of a nation is a modern concept. Nations came into being in the 19th, 20th century. Before that, there are no borders, there are no passports. So therefore, the term invasion and therefore the term insider, outsider, foreigner and native are terms which are of fairly recent origin. Now, how all this is connected to the question of Indian identity, I will come to sometime later. We have talked about clothes, what we wear. Now, I'll give you some examples about the food we eat. Now, is there something called Indian food? There is nothing called Indian food. There is a Tamilian food, there is Malayali food, there is Bengali food, there is Gujarati food. But look at what we are eating in the name of Indian food in all these parts of the country. And what is the antiquity of these things that we are eating? In non-vegetarian food, there is something called the Mughlai food. Actually, it's a corruption of the original term. It should be Mughaliya and not Mughlai. But leave that. Now, Mughlai food, how do you identify Mughlai food? It is very rich. It has a lot of, it is cooked in a lot of oil or ghee. It is very rich in spices. And it is very hot. Now, when I say hot, all of you will understand hot comes from chilies. There were no chilies in India till the time of Jahangir. Chilies came to us from South America. They were brought here by either the Spanish or the Portuguese. They found them growing there. Though I have recently read that there is a very old tradition of chili cultivation in the northeast. And recently in a competition held, a chili grown somewhere in Assam was declared the hottest chili anywhere in the world. Now, I don't know whether that tradition is 400-year old or older. But in North India, there were no chilies. If Jahangir ate Mughaliya food, it would have been spiced with black pepper. There were no chilies. Which means that Mughaliya food as we know it today couldn't have been invented before the time of Shah Jahan or maybe later, time of Aurangzeb or even later. Because chilies came and then their cultivation and their spread and so on and so forth is a later phenomenon. We eat cabbage. Where did it come from and when? Cabbage was brought to us by the French. Cauliflower was brought to us by the British. Large part of India, we do our cooking in mustard oil. There are two varieties of mustard. One is called the Indian mustard and the other is Mediterranean mustard. The Mediterranean mustard is the black or yellow mustard. The Indian mustard is very small in size, and it is used basically in pickles. We also know it as rye. Very little oil is extracted from it. So, the mustard that we use in our cooking is not of Indian origin. Gujarat, all the food today in Gujarat is cooked in groundnut. Now, I was in Gujarat a couple of months ago and I was talking about these issues to some friends there. And I asked them for how long has groundnut been cultivated in Gujarat. Somebody said 5,000 years, somebody said 4,000 years, somebody said 2,000 years. They wouldn't believe me when I told them that the first harvest of groundnut was taken in Gujarat in 1920, precisely 83 years ago. Before that, all Gujarati cooking was done in Til oil. So the great Gujarati cuisine that all of us are familiar with is a creation of last 83 years. There is this huge vegetable called pumpkin. In some parts of North India, it is known as sitaphal. The earliest trace of the cultivation of sitaphal, of pumpkin, is in the memorials that the Incas built to their ancestors in Machu Picchu in Peru, Chile. And these memorials date back roughly to the time of when the Egyptians, pharaohs were ruling in Egypt. That is for how long the Inca Indians have been cultivating the pumpkin. It reached us again through the Portuguese. Though, I don't know how they started calling it sitaphal, because Sita certainly didn't eat it when she was on her, unless of course, according to these new writers of history, Ram, Sita and Lakshman had in their Vanvas also gone to South America. But otherwise, Sita couldn't have eaten the pumpkin. Similarly, the custard apple is not of Indian origin. Chiku is not of Indian origin. Lychee is not of Indian origin. Lauki is not of Indian origin. Turai, which is also known as sponge gourd, is found to be growing in the wild in India. It is certainly of Indian origin, but its cultivation is not an old tradition. For cultivation, the sponge gourd was brought to India from West Africa by the British. Before that, sponge gourd was not cultivated in India. People used to pluck it wild and eat it, but the variety that we get it today came to us from West Africa. The aubergine, brinjal, the name aubergine is of French origin. We know it also in North India as bangan. The word bangan is a corruption of the Spanish, of the Persian badingan, which in turn is a corruption of the Arabic al-badinjan. It is also known as the eggplant. So therefore, when it was introduced as the eggplant, the Brahmins had prohibited the use of the fruit of the eggplant, because there is a variety of eggplant which is white in color, absolutely white, and it is shaped like the egg. So the consumption of that was banned by the Pandits. There is onions. Now onions have a very interesting story. I have read it as a story. I have not been able to double check it, but this story is interesting. It was apparently first cultivated by the Egyptians on the banks of the Nile. And they did not use onion to eat or as a spice. They used it as a preservative to preserve the dead bodies of their pharaohs. It was made into a paste, and that was used as a preservative when the bodies were cleaned. From there, it traveled to Arabia. By the time it reached Arabia, Islam had come into existence. According to the Maulvi, if you ate onions, you got sexually aroused, which was the game of the devil. It smelled foul. Again, the hand of the devil was seen behind all that. So they said, nobody is going to eat it. People normally don't listen to mullahs. They didn't. And they continued eating. And the onions reached India. Through the Arabs and Central Asians, they reached here. The Brahmin reacted in exactly the same manner in which the mullah had reacted. He said, onion is kamottejak. It is erotic. It arouses erotic passions. It smells foul. It has been brought by the Malechas. And the Pandit said, the following shall not eat onions. The brahmachari will not eat it. Kanyas will not eat it. Sannyasis will not eat it. Widows will not eat it. The Thakurs could eat it because they had to go and kill, so they required all this energy. And the lower castes and the lower orders could eat it. Now, why I am telling you all this is that the food that we eat today, and we take great pride in saying this is our tradition, this is our fruit, this is how Indian cuisine is shaped. Large part of these are not they were not born here. They did not grow out of this soil. They were They were brought from outside and they are cultivated all over. So this is the richness of the food that we eat today. Large part of that has come to us in the last 300, 400 years. Large part of what we eat today. All the pulses that we eat are not of Indian origin. Some of them are. Masoor is of Indian origin. Urad, which is also called mash, is of Indian origin. Arhar, also called thuhar, I think, in parts of tur, is not of Indian origin. And this is one lentil which is consumed the most in India. This is the essential base for making sambar. Tur or arhar is of Mediterranean origin, from where we also got dhania, which is coriander. Just as our food and the clothes we wear are of recent origin, so is this concept of Indianness of very recent origin, as recent as the 17th, 18th century. This is when the Europeans arrived here. Initially, the Europeans were fighting among themselves also to capture large parts of, so the Portuguese, the Spanish, the French, the British, the Dutch, each one of them was trying to capture as much of India as they could. But gradually, the British succeeded and they came to control large parts of this country. And within 70, 80 years of the time that they had come to exercise control on India, there was a revolt against them, which we know also as the first struggle for freedom, 1857. Before 1857, there were fairly long-term resistance in pockets. Hyder Ali and Tipu Sultan fought them. Rani Chennamma fought them. There were struggles in Bengal, in Bihar, in Bastar, scattered. But the first organized attempt was in 1857. Delhi was captured by the rebels and remained under the control of the rebels for 3 months. 22nd September 1857, the British recaptured Delhi, arrested Bahadur Shah Zafar, beheaded 2 of his sons, and then there was a massacre in Delhi. When the British came here, this country was divided into hundreds, if not thousands, of small rulers, small kingdoms, and each one of them was fighting each other. To the extent that when Rani Jhansi, who was fighting the British, and the British army, which is essentially Indian soldiers who were in the employ of the British, were chasing her, and she was running to save her life, she went to Gwalior. Gwalior was ruled by the Sindhiyas, and she asked them for help. And the Sindhiyas closed the door of their fort. That is how she died. When Awadh was fighting the British, the Nawab of Rampur helped the British. So did the Nawab of Mahmudabad. The 2 other important principalities in UP, they supported the British against Wajid Ali Shah and Birjis Qadr. The Nizam of Hyderabad, the Marathas, and the Vodiyar of Mysore, they joined together with the British to attack Tipu Sultan and Hyder Ali. They were all 3 local rulers. It was not even a Hindu-Muslim thing, because Nizam Hyderabad is a Muslim. They joined together with the British against Tipu Sultan and Hyder Ali. And Hyder Ali and Tipu and after that Hyder Ali, with all their efforts, they could not get anybody's support. And they had to go. Wajid Ali Shah had to go because none of his neighbors would support him. Rani Jhansi had to go because Sindhiya's next door neighbors won't support her. When the British came, they at one go removed a large number of these local chiefs. Now you had a ruler who had nothing in common with you. He dressed differently, he ate different food, he spoke differently, he lived a totally different life. And he did not consider himself an Indian. He had come from outside. He considered those who lived in this territory as uncivilized, uncouth, uncultured, half-naked, junglis, and he had all kinds of names for the Indians. And the reaction of the Indians who wanted to remove the British realized that this can happen only when the people living in this entire subcontinent start looking at themselves as one people. There were sporadic appeals which were based on the basis of religion. Somebody said Muslims have to unite, somebody said Hindus have to unite. Some people started talking of 1,000 years of slavery and so on and so forth. But in the main, the struggle was fought by all the Indians coming together to fight a common enemy. So the Indian identity was created in struggle against the British. And it was an all-inclusive identity. The identity that was created was the identity of all those who lived on this subcontinent. And they wanted to get rid of the white man who had come and taken over their land and had converted them into slaves. And it is in the struggle against him that we get our identity of Indians. Regardless of the languages we spoke, regardless of the religions we followed, regardless of the music we listened to, regardless of our rituals, our traditions, we all became one against the common enemy. And it is this unity that got us our freedom. That is the Indian identity. Anybody who is talking of Indian identities prior to this is talking through his head. The sense of oneness was created in the struggle against the British. And what keeps this country together is this sense of oneness. The moment this sense of oneness is broken, this country will cease to exist. So, all the new attempts that are being made to redefine India through the reference of its past in 5000 BC or 2000 BC, these are dangerous attempts because ultimately they will divide this country.